Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Monday Open, hosted by the Vantage Private Client Team. My name is Ollie, and joining me today we've got Steve. How you going, Steve?
I'm good, Ollie. Yourself?
Yeah, going all right, mate. Bit wet off the weekend, but could be a lot worse. All right, so moving into the agenda for the video ahead. For any of our returning viewers, this will all look very familiar, but for any of our new faces here, this is how we normally run it. So, starting off, we'll take a look at the major events of last week and take a look at our key themes and see how this moved prices. We'll then move into the week ahead section. We'll put a spotlight on some of the major events coming up, give our take on how this fits in with our key themes, and give a projection on where we think prices will go. We'll then move into the technical corner where we'll put a spotlight on a couple of key different markets using our technical indicators. And lastly, we'll go into our Q&A section where Steve and I will answer some of your guys' most commonly asked questions from last week. Just a quick disclaimer for all of you guys as well that anything that we discuss here is very general in nature and won't take into account your circumstances. As well, any projections we give are not guaranteed, and past performance is not always a reliable indicator of future performance. So now, brushing that off, let's move into the last week section. So starting off on your guys' screen, you will see your top traded products from last week. On first glance, instantly I'm seeing three of the major US indices in there, but also surprisingly no yen pairings, given that we do have the BOJ this week. But any surprises for you, Steve?
Yeah, I'm totally surprised that there's no yen pairings, considering that we've previously had yen pairings and with the BOJ decision coming up. So, yeah, but we'll get into the last week, and we've got pretty jam-packed actually with last week and this week. So, your favorite, talking about Japan, Japanese public holiday on Monday. So obviously, yeah, one of your favorite countries.
Get me over there, man. Just need these holidays.
But we'll make it pretty brief. When it comes to last week, there was a lot of it was fairly US heavy when it comes to the data. So better than expected sort of data, lower sort of inflation figures, the continuing as well as initial jobless claims better than expected. But considering that's always a weekly thing, I'm just thinking that eventually you kind of run through the sort of numbers, and it's hard to see when it comes to the initial. So there could be other people who have lost jobs, but it's the second time running kind of thing. We have actually seen all-time highs within gold and silver. So last week, and we're running at all-time highs as of today in the nation session. So a bit of movement, a lot of volatility. But yeah, we also saw with the key notable events, we saw there was actually a delay of the Supreme Court decision on tariffs, and we'll be also talking about tariffs very shortly again. There was a big surprise actually on Thursday in regards to the Aussie, so the local market. So CBA actually came out with an article, raised the fixed interest rates by zero point 0.7, which as everyone's kind of expecting the 3rd of Feb in regards to whether there's going to be rate hold or hike when it comes to the RBA meeting. This is actually very surprising considering that the CBA has gone they've pretty much predicted February and May as the next of hikes when it comes to the Aussie interest rates. So pretty surprising from that perspective. We also saw the US threats to Iran. So basically, Trump has actually threatened Iran, especially with what's happening in Iran. But yeah, the another important headline was actually Trump basically saying that Kevin Hassett, so Kevin Hassett, who was the front runner when it comes to replacing Fed Chair Jerome Powell as the next of Fed member. So Fed Powell, basically his term ends May 2026. So Hassett, so that's almost ruled out one Kevin. And to give you context, a lot of the business leaders of the Fortune 500 companies actually asked Trump in writing to actually not even consider Kevin Hassett. So we're actually looking at Kevin Walsh is now basically the front runner. Christopher Waller is a very outside chance. So it feels like it's the Melbourne Cup day again with one person bowing out. But yeah, we also have big deals when it comes to Canada signing a trade deal with China. So they're basically also allowing the Chinese sort of EV market. But pressing news over the weekend was really Trump threatens more tariffs on 8 countries. So these 8 European countries being Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, Netherlands, Finland, and Britain. So basically, he said because he wants control of Greenland, he said that there's going to be a 10% tariff by February. Otherwise, if there's still sort of backlash to it, there's also 25% by June. So this has really helped, obviously, the sort of safe havens being silver and gold. So really made an impact this week already, considering it happened just yesterday as Sunday. But
Yeah, I mean, gold opening at all-time highs doesn't happen lightly, does it?
yeah, and it also gapped as well, which says a lot of things. But we'll go on to this week because yeah, we also have so we've actually got a US public holiday, so 2 countries in a row. But we've got in the US we've got the Martin Luther King Jr. Day, so that's going to be really wild because you're going to see that considering the news that's only come out from Trump and the lower liquidity and the US markets being shut, we're seeing the indices really, track decent sized movements on the downside. So, for example, the US 30, so the Dow, as well as the NASDAQ. So, it will be very interesting to see how it actually reopens. Obviously, not later tonight, but the following. Um, We've got the Bank of Japan policy rate, so it is expected to be held at 0.75. Last time we saw that there was a rate hike, 25 basis points, and potentially that sort of we've spoken about the yen carry trade previously in regards to that. We did see an article in regards to potentially the next one being April, but it'll be interesting to see with how that sort of pans out. So I think that came out of Bloomberg, was it, Ollie?
I was just off of Reuters, but I do think for the Bank of Japan, it's definitely having. I think we're going to wait to see what happens with the FX intervention. I think it's the Japanese finance ministers talking about the FX intervention, that happening alongside the US as well. So I'd be surprised if the BOJ is inclined to do any surprises while that one's still
Yeah,
up in the air.
yeah, no, that's an important point. So that's why we thought that there would be probably some sort of activity in the yen, but we've also got locally Australia. We've got the unemployment rate as well as the change numbers when it comes to December. So we've got the PMI. So just looking at the businesses and the sort of activity. Uh, Today we got the China GDP, so it was as expected, so 4.5. The unemployment rate was a little bit lower, so 5.1. Retail sales was weaker, but the also the quarter on quarter Q4 was actually exceeded, so it was 1.2 compared to 1 for China, which has kind of seen the Aussie, a little bit of a momentum up from earlier today, but obviously ranging currently at the moment. But we've got Euro data, we've got the UK, we've got again more US data, especially the GDP, the quarter and quarter. And one of the big sort of Fed like indicators is really around the core PCE price index. So that's what the Fed looks at closely when actually coming to whether it's a hold, a hike, or yeah, so the easing cycle. So we'll really see with that sort of data. We've also got the sort of the manufacturing and services PMI. So it's really a jam-packed week this week as well as last week. So yeah, what are your thoughts, Ollie?
Well, I think it's going to be a lot of volatility in the US markets because from memory, we've got the next Fed meeting next week. So this is really going to shape shape what happens in there. I don't think it's going to sway expectations, but for the jobless claims, it had a good week last week. Questionable whether or not it can maintain, but let's wait and see. Okay, so let's move it into the technical corner now. Let me just share my screen with everybody. Okay, so screen should be up there now. So I wanted to start off by looking at Bitcoin. Looking at Bitcoin against the USD on the 1 weekly chart. So initial glance looking on here, I'm seeing a bit of the formation of the head and shoulders sort of formation here. It's quite well documented. We did have a pretty strong uptrend for Bitcoin over the last few years. We managed to reach an all-time high towards this end of September, and since we've seen a pretty strong sell-off, you can see that by the descending channel just here. We did find support at the 85,000, or actually on its 100-week moving average, and it's since been in a very steady uptrend. But I'm looking to see whether or not this will continue, or if we're looking to potentially make another shoulder on this head and shoulders formation. Um, if I'm looking on the MACD, I'm seeing the MACD below its signal, which is a typical bearish indicator, which I'm not particularly surprised on given the sell-off since the all-time highs. But I am seeing a bit of convergence in the MACD with its signal line, which can add as part of a signal to a change of directions for the market. But to get a better idea of this, I want to move into the daily chart. So daily chart for Bitcoin against the US dollar, and we can see right now prices are actually sitting on its 20 and 50-day moving average, which historically we can see prices do love to react to these levels, which is why I do think it's quite important to get an idea of where we're sitting. So for this, I do think that this 85,000 that we have seen is a pretty strong support. So I am a buyer in this market personally. So reason why I'm saying this, I want to see the prices for now find support on these two moving averages, which would add to a sequence of higher lows. And I think if we do see a fine support, see it close just above these key support levels and start off the next day positive, I do think we've got a pretty clear path to retest last week's highs. And then to make a higher high on this, we'll add to a sequence of higher highs as well, which would also add to this bullish momentum that we've seen in the short term for Bitcoin. Similarly, though, if we do see the prices continue to decline over the course of the day, I do think we could see it then try and look to retest the most recent swing low, which is at the 90.5K. But given that I was seeing a bit of convergence with the MACD as well, I do think a move that low will actually lead to a cross in the MACD. So be very conscious of that one as well, as this does add to a bit of bearish momentum and could act as a signal for a sell. So we're looking on both sides here, but for right now, I do want to see how prices react for the day, and then especially how they react once the US is back in session. So the next market I want to take a look at is the AUD against the USD. So as we said, or as Steve has just said as well, we did have some data from China come out today, which is why we have seen a bit of a buy on this trade as well. But let's see how it plays out over the course of the week. So on the weekly chart, prices were ranging between 64 to 66 for the large part of the year from around late April up until about the start of December. But when we did see the first time break on this, we did see a break and a hole, but a quick sell-off since. Most recent price action, well, after we broke the 66 cents, we saw it come up, make a high at about 66.8, come down and find support at its prior resistance, which is a signal of bullish momentum for a continuation. But where I do think this is quite significant, particularly in the short term, first of all, we can see over the past 4 weeks, we have seen the prices consolidate above the 200-day or 200-week moving average, which is the first time this happened in 4 years. But I'm also seeing that on the top of these 3 weekly candles for the prior weeks, I'm seeing very considerable long wicks on the top. So it's telling me that even though there is buying momentum for the Aussie dollar at the moment, there is still some selling pressure once we do see a break above 67. Can see the MACD is above its signal, which is adding to the bullish momentum, particularly in the short term. But I want to get a look at what is likely to happen, or what I'm thinking is going to happen over the course of the week. So right now, I'm waiting for a signal of either buying or selling momentum on there. Right now, I do think it is at an important level, which is just above its 20-day moving average. So if I'm a buyer in this market, I want to see the prices break and hold above this 67, which it has failed to hold above on the weekly chart for the past 3 weeks. So I do want to see it break and hold above this 67. I think if it can make a higher high on the Thursday, Friday as well, I do think the next clear path is a retest of its yearly highs so far, which would be up around here. Similarly, though, if we do see the prices continue the bullish trend for the day so far and find resistance at this 67, failing to retest as highs from Thursday and Friday last week, I do think it will then look to make a lower low on last week and a break and hold below that. I do think we'll see a bit of a decline on the prices where it will look to retest this next key level around its 50-day moving average. Anything below that, we could see it look to retest around the 66. But for right now, I'm waiting for a confirmation on either side of that. So we'll wait to see how the week plays out on that front. So that brings me to the end of the technical section here. So now moving into the Q&As, where Steve and I will answer some of your guys' most commonly asked questions from last week. So
Yeah.
Steve, would you like to take it away with question one?
Yeah, so the question one is how accurate do you think the central bank interest rate trackers are? So what we previously referred to is basically the ASIC interest rate tracker, or for example, the CME Fed tool. So the ASIC interest rate tracker tracks the RBA decisions, as well as the CME Fed tool looks at the US, for example. Right now, as of the actual 3rd of February result when it comes to the RBA, we're looking at a 78% hold. But looking at that, that kind of contradicts, I guess, the predictions from CBA saying that there's going to be a February as well as May rate hike. So we're really waiting till the 28th of January to kind of confirm that sort of that sort of data, and just see whether that's going to change when it comes to the hold. Plus, the previous print was outside the RBA's 2 to 3% band. We've also seen that the CME Fed tool also is it also factors a lot of the sort of percentages, but I see that both of them are fairly conservative. So it doesn't necessarily always price in compared to what's priced into the actual market. So always use it as an informed tool, but bear in mind that it could already be priced in. So for example, last on the December decision when it comes to the RBA, there was a 5% chance of I believe it was a ease when it was pretty much priced in 99% for a hold. So it's one of those sort of tools just to help, but I think it's very conservative in my personal view.
Definitely one of those to add into a cluster of signals for a direction of the trade, right? Okay, so I'll take question two as well. So, what is the World Economic Forum and why is it significant? So, this week we are seeing the start of the World Economic Forum for this year. So, to touch on what it is that it's an international organization which looks to bring together political, business, and academic leaders to align on the regional and global agendas for the year ahead. So, where this is significant, in my opinion, is that it gives a platform for a lot of our central bank heads, a lot of important figures in the global economies to give their voice out. And it can give everybody a bit of a direction on what we could see for the year ahead. For this week coming up, we do have a speech from Donald Trump scheduled in. So, we do know markets love to react to what he says. We're also expected to see talks from the Bank of England Governor Bailey, as well as the ECB President Lagarde, where they might give a bit of a talk on what their outlooks are for the year, any forecasts on where we think the interest rates will go, where we could see some volatility as traders look to price in those future moves. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the video today. Recording of this will be uploaded on YouTube once we have concluded. As well, we will be posting a link to this in our VIP chat room as well as on Telegram. For anyone who's looking to get involved with the Monday Open and send through any questions, please feel free to send them through on the VIP chat room or reach out to your relationship manager directly. As well, just a reminder for everybody as well that we do have a public holiday here in Australia next Monday. So we will be absent, but we're looking to keep the conversation going on the VIP chat room as well. So for anyone who has any questions, again, please feel free to reach out. So that's all from me today. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And Steve, I'll see you later.
Thanks, Ollie, and have a great evening, everyone.